Well, hey, what's up, brothers? Hugh Halter. Probably can't see me because I'm in my camo. If you guys had any idea how long it takes me to set up for these videos, I try to prop up this silly little cell phone. That's why I'm winded. I've been in 6 different spots in this office. It falls down. If you guys have, any of you guys are into those gimmicky items that hold cell phones, send me an idea of what I should get, because right now it's propped up on a rubber band I'd show you, but I don't want to move it again because right now it's holding. I got some tape on the corner so it won't fall off. But I need some help out here in Illinois. So, hey, we're kicking off the new year. Going to start through the book of James. And by the way, I'm excited. A partner here that I have in ministry named Taylor McCall. He's a very gifted musician, and he put the entire book of James to really beautiful music. And we were talking about it today, and he's got about 500 of the CDs that he did for the book of James. And if you're interested, I think we may try to send over a box to you guys and get them distributed. Taylor was talking about, one of the ways or reasons why God gave us music was to help us actually remember words. So the book of Psalms, is set to music because they wanted to remember those things. They didn't actually have printing presses. So when somebody said a hymn or a book of wisdom, they can memorize the entire book just through the song. So that might be something really cool if you're into that. We'll get one of those to you. So so we're going to start the book of James. James is written mostly to a Jewish context. And what's maybe the most important thing to note kind of about that, other books were written to people that were non-Jewish. So a lot of the Pauline epistles, as we call them, from Paul were written to Gentiles, people that were not Jews, folks that were probably more, on the outs, if you will. They weren't used to the Jewish customs or the Mosaic law or growing up in that religious setting. So James is unique in that it kind of comes from the understanding that the people that they were writing to had very entrenched viewpoints. And so the ways of Jesus would cut right across the grain of that. And that's important for us. Many of us are, we've grown up in the church, or we've had quite a bit of religion, and we don't always notice it. But right now we're in the first week of January, and you can tell that there are some very deep religious viewpoints that are getting very convoluted inside of politics, and it's almost like you can't change somebody's mind. This is why when Jesus comes and he starts to talk about discipling or go and make disciples, it was such a wild concept, because he was the idea of disciple wasn't weird. Everybody had disciples. There were rabbis everywhere. And each rabbi, picture that, like in your city, there might be 300 rabbis that you could pick from. All of them had kind of their unique take on things. And so disciples would almost pick the rabbis because they already agreed with what they were saying or what they heard them say. And so each rabbi would have kind of a unique thumbprint on their theology or what they would expect from their disciples. And so when Jesus says, go and make disciples, he's basically going, yeah, I just want to jump into the ring with all these other guys that are telling you what to do. And Jesus begins to talk about the kingdom of heaven, and that the disciples that he wants they're essentially little Jesuses. They're people that take on his way of life and his way of thinking, his outlook, his worldview. And so the first thing that Jesus had to fight against was religious tradition. So that's the one thing that actually can veil or hide the reality of the kingdom of God more than anything, is that you've heard it too many times, or you think you know what it's about, or you've watched it from maybe a distance. Maybe you watched your parents go to Catholic Mass week after week, and you just went, it's not that big a story for me. So familiarity oftentimes is the greatest enemy of really finding the true Jesus and a faith that is transformative. So as we go through the book of James, we're going to assume that we're all the religious people that Jesus is trying to reframe it around and So there might be some stuff that goes against the grain. So let's just get started. I actually printed off 3 translations. The Passion Translation, which was written in more of the street language of the time. It's a little more artsy, fartsy, a little fruity, actually more emotional. Definitely has a more feminine edge to it. It's meant to be a much more sensitive kind of look at it. I've got the Message, which is a little bit more of a paraphrase, and I've got the NIV that is a little bit more straight translation to the Greek. So each one of these, I think, is going to help us a little bit. We're not going to get that far today, but I'll read from New International Version. It says, James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ. Again, to a Jewish person, servanthood, not that big a deal. Everybody kind of served somebody. They think back in the times that this was written, over half the people were indentured servants. So everybody was serving somebody. He's just now saying, I'm serving Jesus. That's my Lord. And then he writes to the 12 tribes scattered across the nations. And that tells us that's a Jewish concept. Kind of a cool way that these other ones said it is, I'm writing to all 12 tribes of Israel who have been sown as seeds among the nations. When you think about how Jesus was going to change the world, like even think about it today with all the disruptions and the dissension and almost like the inability to ever see that the world could experience a sense of unity or love, you would go, how would you ever do that? Well, in Jesus's paradigm, you never try to change it from up on top or from like with a megahorn. He always taught that you put new sort of yeast into the loaf. You drop a few disciples into the world, and they slowly make a few more disciples, and then eventually over time you actually have a change of the entire culture. And this is what's so wild about the Christian faith, is it was rising up during the time of a very exclusive empire. And you would have looked at an early Christian sort of, or these sort of disciples of Jesus starting off in the world, and nobody would have thought these guys could have got any traction at all. And they literally usurp the Roman Empire. And they don't do it by trying to get more people to vote like they vote. They literally did it through radical love, inclusion of the poor, taking care of people, forming community with people that were unlike each other. And they eventually, literally, people could not stay away from them, and they upturned the Roman Empire. So if you ever wonder how this world could ever come back into order, it is never going to happen from a political standpoint. And again, even that, some of you right now, you're already putting up your dukes with me because there's so many hot issues right now, and you go, no, we just got to get in there and fight this stuff. But I'm going to submit to you that the way of Jesus is far smarter and will make a lot more sense, but we all have to get into it. The essence of a disciple is that we make other disciples. So hopefully at the end of James, you'll not only be encouraged yourself, but you'll have a sense that I need to grab 1 or 2 other mates of mine and begin to sow into them the life of Jesus. So that's how it starts. It says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. Pure joy, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. I'm going to read it 2 more times. I want to read this other translation. My fellow believers, it seems as though you are facing nothing but difficulties. And you see it as an invaluable, or you must begin to now see this as an invaluable opportunity to experience the greatest joy that you can. For you know that when your faith is tested, it stirs up power within you to endure all things. And then as your endurance grows even stronger, it will release perfection in every other part of your life until there's nothing missing and nothing lacking. Last one, consider it a sheer gift, not just joy, but like actually view it like you would view somebody actually bringing a present wrapped to you. Consider it a sheer gift, friends, when tests and challenges come to you from all sides. You know that under pressure, It has a tendency to cause your faith life to be forced into the open and show its true colors. Ouch. Yep, it does. So don't try to get out of anything prematurely. Let it do its work. Let it do its work. So you may become mature and well developed and not deficient in any way. So maybe when you read those in maybe different forms, each one of those gives kind of a cool idea of why we should consider joy. Make one note. It does not say consider it joy that you made it through testing and trial and difficult times. It actually says while you're in it, consider it joy. The way of Jesus, the way of Eastern faith, oftentimes isn't about getting through the stuff, but actually learning and growing right in the middle of it. And so our country is right in the middle of I don't even know any other word other than to call it a big fat shitstorm, okay? And it's affecting every one of us. It doesn't matter if your business is doing well, we're still sensing and feeling a difficulty off on the backside of our right shoulder, like it's touching all of us. And then you add COVID and other things that we're experiencing. This is the context in which we're living. And so in the context that these cats are feeling might be that they're all living in poverty probably. They're all, hardly any of them are living past the age of 35. They've probably lost a lot already, and they're under an empire, and they're scattered all over the world because they're getting their asses handed to them. I mean, that's literally the context. Our context is our world is very disrupted right now. And so in the midst of that, he says, look, right now, in the middle of this stuff, you've got to begin to find joy because it is doing something in you that's actually going to produce incredible fruit in every aspect of your life. So you got to see it as a gift. I was with some friends this week. I was not sure whether or not I should share this because they're friends of mine. They're people I dearly love. They really love Jesus. We were just visiting them in another city. And it really made the concept of discipleship kind of come alive to me, but in a sad way. This last couple days we had the march upon the Capitol, loss of life, quite a bit of violence, and we were talking about that, and he told me that he was actually there, that he took his son, and there's actually a bunch of men in their church. They all took all of their sons together, almost like a men's retreat, and they went to march upon the Capitol. And they obviously had no idea it was going to go to this dark side. He said they actually spent quite a bit of their time in prayer groups. There were actually, you never hear the full story, right? But in the terrible sides that we've seen on the news and what's happening, there was a lot of people that went there with a genuine heart to pray for the country. Obviously, people that more support the right-wing side of our country, those that view things more conservatively and don't like all the change, and so they're praying. And in a very real sense, they're making disciples. This is one of the unique things about discipleship. Everybody's making disciples. Everybody, you are too. The world makes disciples. That's why we oftentimes say, the enemy of our soul, even if you believe in demonic spirits and satanic oversight of the world, they're making disciples all the time. People that believe in other faiths, they make disciples. Discipleship is reproducing who you are. So each one of us, if we have children, whether or not we have intentionally said, hey, son or daughter, I want to work you through the ways of Jesus, it doesn't matter. If we live a half-hearted kind of religious way after God, then our kids, that's how we've discipled them, kind of be half in, half out. If we have failed in the past and then we quit because we just don't think that God's forgiveness can apply to us, people watch that and so they go, yeah, I guess that part of the story of what Jesus did it must not be real. Just in every aspect of our life, we make disciples, and here is this family that loves Jesus, and they are, we were sitting down talking about that, and it went from just kind of a observation about what they experience to the wife, who's a very dear friend, again, talking, almost going into a fearful, angry rant about being willing to give her life when she expects that people will come to her door someday and take her kids out of the house and force them to be vaccinated. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I mean, I understand a lot of the conspiracy theories on both sides, and they all actually have some pretty compelling arguments that you can go, oh, I can actually see that happening, whether it's a censorship argument or a forced vaccination argument that none of us will be able to travel unless we get vaccinated, or blah, blah, blah. But they all have, I mean, literally any of us could go for those deeply because they make some sense. But the point is that they had talked about this so much in their household that they had actually sat their boys down and told them that they were willing to die to protect their rights not to be vaccinated. And when they moved to the city, they bought a ton of guns, ARs, assault rifles. They're all over the house. Date night is going out to a shooting range. And again, some of the stuff you could just look at and go, no big deal. But when you put the whole picture together and then you fly across the country, you recognize that there is a discipling going on there. And at the end of the evening, after a few glasses of wine, just talking about how they're feeling, she expressed that she wakes up every morning with deep anxiety, almost panic attacks. And, we drove away going, man, there's hard to find some joy in there. There was anger, there was concern, there was fear. There was love for Jesus for sure, but there was not joy in the middle of the trial. That somehow they had missed the thing that Jesus said, when you're going through this stuff, this is what you should be looking for. You should be looking for, and joy's, it just means that you have a peaceful contentment and hope, no matter what you're going through, a peaceful, contented hope. And I find that on both sides of the political spectrum right now, if people do not think that they're going to win, they do not experience joy. They have all these other emotions and anxieties and what have you. And so, guys, when we get started, I just want to acknowledge that in the amount of men that are watching these videos, we respect your right to think for yourself. God's given you that right. And we respect, and we don't really care which side of the political spectrum you come from. Each one of us has a story that's deeply influenced how we view the world and what we hope for and the things that we fear for. But I want you to know, to begin the year, I hope you realize what Jesus is trying to bring us is something that transcends all political parties and existed way before there was ever even political parties, okay? So don't forget that. The world has existed for a long time under all sorts of leadership and really crappy leadership all the time. And somehow God's sovereignty and his power and his love still gets through to people. And the one thing he's always offered, no matter what or how deep or how painful the struggle is that you can actually throughout the day, and you can wake up in the morning and you can go to bed with a sense of joyful, expectant, hopeful peace. And so consider it joy, guys, right now, not because you got your way or you got your vote or that you think you might win an argument. Don't lose your mind if you've lost your vote and lost some things that you care about. God's in control. God is, it actually says that he laughs at the nations. Scripture says God literally looks at this and it's like, he doesn't laugh angrily. He doesn't laugh to belittle us. What it means is that he's got it. He's got this under control. He doesn't want his disciples that he sends out into the world to make more of the same, to be disciples that are anxious and tied in knots and freaking out and angry and looking who they can shoot in the side of the neck, okay? We are to literally be salt and light. That's the type of disciple almost to where he goes, you're never even going to have to try to win a convert to this, because people will be coming to you because you're the only ones that don't seem to be freaking out. And there seems to be a peace about you and a stability. And so I think that's a great hope for us this week. And have fun chatting this through. But I can't wait to get through this book. This is the very first book I memorized in college. And I hope that as you get these CDs, you listen to the words of this entire book, that you'll actually memorize it. It could be a pretty crazy, cool thing to have happen. So we'll try to get those CDs sent down to you pretty quick. And take care, guys. Bye-bye.